Alright. Hi, Lorcana players. Welcome to my first puzzle. So, we're going to try and decide the optimal line for the player on the left, the Ruby Amethyst player. Every relevant card that was removed from the deck would be noted in the discard section, so even if it would be in the inkwell, if it just assume they're not relevant in the situation. Most of you, I assume, came from a YouTube short, but if not, feel free to go ahead and pause now and decide. 3, 2, and 1. Alright. So let's go ahead and go through my thought process as to why I made the decision that I made as to my line, and let's see if your line matches up. So to go ahead and start, the first thing that I'm looking at here is the Madame Mim, because that is the interesting card in this situation, and the Elsa. So in this case, we are able to see that the opponent has Tamatoa on board with a Lucky Dime and 2 dimes in the discard, as well as the Popsicles, which will allow it to go ahead and quest up to 21 next turn, right? So if Tamatoa taps first, then they will go up to, 4, up to 11. Then you can play the dime, which will then tap, and then you go up to that number, above 20. So, currently the big issue within the game is Tamatoa tapping, because that gets a dime back, and that gets a lot of lore. So, we need to prevent that, and that's why we have the Elsa in this situation. So, we're going to ink the Mim, right? And in doing so, inking the Mim, the Mim's kind of just there as a ink potential, but also so that players are able to read what it does. But let's go ahead and read through them. So, we go ahead and see here, also, when you play this card, exert up to 2 chosen characters, and they can't ready at the start of their next turn. And Mim is a shift card that says, tap and play a character with cost 4 less or free. They gain rush, and at the end of the turn, banish them. Elsa has a strong body for a 4/6, but it is very costly and uninkable, and has 3 lore that it can quest for. And Madame Mim has that 2 lore that it can quest for. Some of the other important cards that are shown here are the Maui, the Mim Fox, the Goat, and the Castle, but I assume most of you have seen these cards before if you've played. And then on our opponent's side, we have the Tamatoa, the Lucky Dime, and the Maui. I also assume you've seen these if you've played a couple games. But some cards that are not shown on the board are these rush cards here. Within the Queen of Hearts and Hercules, we have the Be Prepared, which is the important board clear, and Maleficent, which is single target removal. So, in this situation, we are going to go ahead and... What in the world did I write here? Okay, so let's go ahead and describe the line that I had gone ahead and seen. Sorry, I made this earlier today, and I'm not editing anything. So I would go ahead and ink the Mim here, going up to 8 in the inkwell, and then from there we can go ahead and tap the play the Elsa to go ahead and tap the Maui and the Tamatoa. In doing so, we can also go ahead and tap the Mim, going up 2 lore, up to 16. With this line, you can go ahead and see that we set up lethal on the board with the Queen's Castle and the Elsa. So in order for them to go ahead and stop our inevitable win, they have to play Be Prepared. With the card that they know that we have, right? So that clears the board. But in order to go ahead and counteract the other things that we wanted to do, they would need to go ahead and play a card like Hiram Flavershem in order to go ahead and draw some more cards, as well as having that Queen of Hearts. Because it has to be Queen of Hearts, a card that is nichely ran, in order to bump into our Queen's Castle and kill it off. Otherwise, we will just Mim Fox Merlin next turn, and we will guaranteedly win the game. The reason why I showed the Tamatoa and the Maleficent here is the Maleficent is required to kill off the Mim Fox that we would happen to play next turn with the Merlin. Because assuming that we go ahead and do the Mim Fox turn and the Merlin triggers, we would end up going up to that 18 lore with a Mim Fox on board and a Merlin in hand. So Maleficent would have to kill off the Fox in order to prevent it from tapping, or else we just win on the next turn. But because they wouldn't have enough ink in their inkwell, they wouldn't be able to do that and the Tamatoa. so they would have to make that choice, and they would always have to play the Maleficent. So Tamatoa comes down a turn later, as we see here with the targeting. So within this play, we would go ahead and play our goat back out to hand, or out from our hand, and we would go up to 19 in this situation and have 2 other cards in hand with 4 remaining ink. So this gives us a lot of options if we hit Mim Snakes, if we hit Draw Engines, a lot of things that can prevent them from winning, as well as the fact that we just have the Merlin Goat on board, so eventually we will have to win the game from that spot. Alternatively, in their situation, their Tamatoa just hit the board, and maybe they were able to quest a little bit, but ultimately they aren't really able to go ahead and make it up to that big number that they really wanted to get to, just because they don't have enough ink. But yeah. So I would really appreciate a ton if you like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know if you like this longer, in-depth explanation of what my thought process was, for what cards my opponent would potentially need in order to go ahead and win the game from that situation. Or if you would rather just keep it to the shorts and the very short form content. But yeah, like, comment, and subscribe. It helps a ton, as I'm trying to go ahead and try out content. And it'll help me go ahead and decide whether I want to go ahead and invest and go ahead and make in-person content with things like set champs. Another thing, because I recently made my Ruby Amethyst guide, right after I ended up making that video, I ended up finding this Twitter thread, which I will link in the comments. But it's this amazing guide from the 20 Lore Discord on how to play Ruby Amethyst. I think it's one of the best guides out there. I would heavily recommend it. And it goes really well into how we go ahead and think in steps within Lorcana. And yeah, otherwise, check out my Discord. It'll also be in the comments. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you got it right. And let me know if I got anything wrong. I don't know if I mentioned that, because I could very possibly have screwed up. Thank you.